How is everybody this morning? Thank you for holding brief for us as we were preparing to bring you this very much anticipated discussion on marriage and GBV. Welcome to the Boys Chamber. The Boys Chamber is a series of online discussions that have been curated by Peace Tree Network and the Anita Initiative. Of course, with me here is a very carefully curated panel that is going to help us discuss today's topic. And I want to start by introducing. I want to start by introducing the representative from Peace Tree Network. That is Rachel. So, Rachel.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Robin Omeka, for introducing me to the live stream. My name is Rachel Stephanie Akini, as aforementioned. I wear I the hat I'll be wearing today is a representative of Peace Tree Network. Peace Tree
I
Network
where
dealing in
the
conflict
hat
resolution
I'll be wearing today is the representative of
of
History
Peace Tree
Network.
Network, and Peace Tree
History
Network
Network
is
uh,
a
in
peacekeeping conflict resolution
resolution
organization that has been around since
of History
2000,
Network. And History
working
Network
around peace, building, gender
is a
development.
dealing in
Yes.
conflict
So what we are
organization
doing
that
today on
has
the
been
Boys Chamber series
uh,
is in partnership with
around since
and
2000,
it's under the
working around
advocacy docket of
building
Peace
gender
Tree Network.
development.
And I am
Yes.
so glad to have
So
on board here
what we are
Kaya,
doing
Sweet
today on the
Mama,
first but
to
we
have
are
Robin
in
Mokadi on the stream as
chief
well, and Bentena, and I hope
and
I believe rather I
it's
think
under
we are safe
advocacy block. So,
thank
and I
you
am so glad
again
to have all of
and
you
it's good to
here.
have you all.
Kaya to have Bradley on the and Bentana,
Thank you
and I
so
hope it's
much.
going to believe rather I think we are safe. So, thank you again. And have you all.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We are experiencing a bit of
Thank you
a
so
lag, but
much.
that is going to be sorted out in a few minutes. But I want to jump straight into what the discussion today is. So we are talking about marriage. We are also talking about
Thank you so much,
gender-based
Rachel.
violence.
We are experiencing a bit of a lag, but that is going to be sorted out in a few minutes. But I want to jump to what the discussion today is. So we are talking about marriage. We are also talking about gender-based violence.
The discussion today is going to feature the stories and the experiences of people who are either married, have gone through gender-based violence within marriage, and also people who have been part of the initiation of marriage as an institution. Which is why on our panel today we are joined by a pastor. That is going to be Ben Kuira. Ben Kuira is a youth pastor. He's also a storyteller and a spoken word artist, known on stage as Ben Tenor. We also have Daniel Juma. Daniel Juma is the executive director of Global Peace Foundation. On the same stream, we also have a gentleman named Dan Matakaya. Dan Matakaya is the founder and executive director of Dan Shishie Foundation. He's also a police officer attached to the industrial area police station. In our live stream, we also have a lady by the name Nandi Kegode. Nandi Kegode is a speaker, an emotional intelligence coach. She will be helping us, of course, build an understanding of the topics that we are discussing today from an emotional context. We also have, and we are privileged to have the presence of Raya Wamboi. Raya Wamboi is an artist, a storyteller, and she has been very well traveled in her journey as an artist as well. And she will be helping us condense all this information with a very scintillating performance. So I want all of you to sit back and enjoy the discussions we're having today. And I will start probably by throwing the ball towards Daniel Juma. Daniel Juma, in few words, tell us what your experience as a married man. What is your experience as a married man who is at the helm of society, who is holding brief and being looked up to by many people? What experiences and pressures do you experience as a married person? Daniel Juma.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, as you heard,
yes, we can.
My name is Daniel Juma, and I am a father. Juma, and I am a father. I'm a husband. And also, I'm the country director of the Global Peace Foundation in. And also, I'm the country director of the Global Peace Foundation in. I don't know whether you can hear me. I'm kind of hearing myself. Yeah. Can you hear me? I don't know whether you can hear me. I'm kind of hearing myself.
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, I can.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Dan, we can hear you. Daniel, we can hear you. Just proceed.
Dan, we can hear you. Daniel, we can hear you. Just proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we seem to have lost Daniel.
Okay. We seem to have lost Daniel. I want to
bring in Pastor Ben.
I want to bring in Pastor Ben.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Daniel.
Sorry, I was disconnected.
Yes. So.
Sorry.
Daniel
is here.
Oh, he's back. Okay.
I have two children, and I'm expecting another child. I think this is almost, I think, going to 13 years since I was married. 13 years since I was married. And marriage has been a journey. Marriage has been a journey. Just say it's a beautiful journey. Just say it is so much. And you keep so much in me, and you learn something new. You learn something new. The most important things about marriage is that it is the most important things about marriage. Sacrifice is that it you are sometimes living with someone. Sacrifice you has different preferences. Living with someone from yours. And sometimes different preferences was different from yours. So, and sometimes not like you give in, and meet each other in the middle. But you just have to also an experience. I have never involved. You give in, and meet each other in the middle. So, but has things that and I've never been an experience. I have never involved in gender. So that is has me. And I think one of the reasons for that is that I saw my own parents. I never actually saw my dad and my mom fighting. They never beat each other. They, I never saw, even when they argue, they would not show us that they're actually arguing. So in my life, I've been, trying my level best not to be violent in my own family. And also, raising kids is not easy. So when you're raising a child, you do not want them to see you and your wife fighting. So let me just say, I've been lucky so far. I've never been involved in any fight. I've never been involved in any. Of course, arguments are there. Usually, you disagree in a family. You disagree on issues, on especially sometimes money, yeah. So some of those things are common in marriage, I just to finalize my statement is that as far as marriage may have challenges or may have maybe some difficulties, but it is better. I feel marriage is better than not maybe some difficulties. But I feel marriage is better than a single partner. I don't know how you single people cope. I go single life. I don't know how you single people living alone. Life easy, right? So I living alone for me, one of the most beautiful thing that I did. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel Juma. Yeah. The conversation today is important, especially because we've been conducting online conversations over the past few days, and the nature of the conversations we've been having online, asking people what their take on marriage and what their take on gender-based violence is, you find a very interesting collection of facts and figures. People talk about how the general perception of marriage is such that when people look at it, especially my generation, young people, we are not assessing it from an angle of commitment. It's always about how it's a bad thing and how there's nothing good that is talked about marriage. So when you tell us, you telling us about your experience and how now you don't know how we cope, we are here to learn. We want to learn, and that's why we're on the panel. So thank you so much. I want to bring in Dan Matakaya. Dan Matakaya, today's discussion on marriage and gender-based violence is such that we have a society where we talk about gender-based violence with the understanding that it is something that inherently happens to women alone. The largest percentage is of course true. Women experience a lot of pain and abuse when it comes to issues of gender-based violence, but your story appears in the grand scale of things as a statistical outlier. Please introduce yourself and tell us your story, tell us your experience. Dan Matakaya.
Okay, thank you so much, Robin, for having me in today's forum. And thank you, Peace Tree, for such a noble initiative, because this is the discussion that we need to have like every day. Because Can you hear me, Robin?
Yes, I can hear you. You had stopped talking.
Okay, I was saying that this is a very noble initiative, having such a discussion at this time when many people are suffering, when you have the rate of the gender-based cases is so high, even during this time of the global pandemic, the COVID-19. My name is Dan Matakaya. My name is Dan Matakaya. I'm a police officer currently attached to Industrial Police Station. I'm visually impaired. I'm totally blind. This is as a result of the incident whereby my ex-wife poured sulfuric acid on my face while I was sleeping. This happened on 21st September 2013. I went to the house at around 5:30 in the morning. I was on duty the whole night and I was so tired. So when I reached the house, I just went direct to the bed to sleep. And a few minutes later, she woke up and poured sulfuric acid on my face and ran away. She had even gone further and connected electricity, whereby when she poured the acid on me, when I felt the burning, I tried to get out of the bed to get some water to dissolve the burns. But when I stepped on the floor, I felt a shock. She had connected the power and poured water on the floor. So to me, I usually say I was lucky because when I felt the shock, I never did anything at that moment. I just screamed and my colleagues came for my rescue. I was rushed to the hospital whereby I was given the necessary first aid. I started seeing, but later, when I slept, I woke up and realized that I can't see anymore. And it has taken me quite some time because this happened in Kisii, because when I was transferred to Kenyatta, and in Kenyatta, that's where I received a very comprehensive treatment, the burns treatment. That's where I can say I received a very comprehensive treatment, going through surgeries, surgery after surgeries, and I remember I went and I went over 15 surgeries, and even currently I'm still undergoing treatment. I can say even while I was at the burns unit in Kenyatta, I came across many patients who are suffering the same thing, who had been abused by their loved ones. And it's something that is happening, but you know what? The society has never accepted. The society has never accepted. The worst thing is that men are currently experiencing gender-based violence. Men are being abused by by women, but since the society it has denied, the society has never accepted that men can become victims of gender-based violence. That's why, as per now, statistically, it shows that women are there. The number of men who are being abused is low, is much lower as compared to women. And this is because men have never been given an opportunity to talk about gender-based violence, to talk about what they are going through. When a man comes out and speak about being abused by the wife, the society and even friends start stigmatizing against the same man. And this man feels so inferior, and that's the reason why men never open up and speak about what they're experiencing in marriage. And I feel that we need to change that narrative, because we are living in a society whereby we are advocating for the empowerment of a girl child. But I feel that we are still creating another problem whereby you have an empowered girl where you want her to be married to a man who is not empowered. Still you are creating another problem, and that's something that we need to look into. I've realized that men are suffering because of some of the injustices that our great grandparents did, and now we are the one who are suffering. We are being victimized against those things. But I feel that even having such a conversation at this time is so healthy, because we want to change our society, and we want each and every person in our society to feel comfortable, to feel empowered, and to have a happy life. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you so much, Dan Matakaya. Based on the story that you've given us and your personal experiences, I'd like to bring in Nandi. Nandi?
Hi, is someone saying my name?
Yes.
Someone saying Nandi? It's very, very quiet. Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry, what was the question?
So the question is, based on your experience as an emotional intelligence coach,
yeah,
do you feel like there's a need for an overhaul of what we have in society as emotional intelligence? Is there something people need to learn going into marriage, especially as men, that may help them speak more or talk
yes
when things are going in a way that... Yes, ma'am.
No, sorry, continue. It's just you're so quiet that I can't I can sometimes hear you loudly and sometimes not hear you at all.
Can you hear
so
me
you would
now?
like me to comment on emotional intelligence in our country, and men and the status of it and whether we need an overhaul, is that correct?
Yes, especially where gender-based violence and the issues that lead up to it are concerned, when it comes to how it affects men.
Okay. So one of the things that I find really, and I know this is going to sound very strange, but one of the things that I find really encouraging about gender-based violence is, from an emotional intelligence perspective, it means that society is becoming more equal, in the sense that it is not primarily the women or the children that are experiencing genital mutilation, physical suppression, all of that stuff. Now, whilst obviously this isn't to take away from the horrific experience that you yourself have had, officer, from a scientific point of view, yes, gender-based violence that becomes prevalent in both sexes means that there is gender equality happening within the society, which we can look at positively, right? Because it means that now we have to become responsible for making sure that gender-based violence is addressed. Now, from an emotional intelligence perspective, the one thing that we fail to consider most of the time is that Africans have different emotional intelligence to Europeans, or to Americans, or to Japanese, or to North Africans, sub-Saharan Africans. We have a very, very different psychosocial template. So trying to use studies from Europe or studies from anywhere else that is not based in sub-Saharan Africa is basically going to make your findings obsolete, and they will not have any effectiveness within our region. Okay, so one of the main things that we need to look at societally is how does emotional intelligence present for us as Africans? right? So for what does it take? What does it take for a society, for a sub-Saharan society, to become safe enough that we can begin to work on our emotional intelligence? Okay, because and one thing that I will comment on, because I have a lot of experience and requests from a lot of males in Kibera when I do go and work, because I work specifically with women. I work with women because I do believe that Kibera is actually a matriarchal society. And so while there is the illusion that the males actually run the society, it's actually the women that sustain the economy of Kibera. And so in that instance, it becomes more important to make sure that the women are fully supported so that the boy child gets the right support that he needs. Because currently I have issues of 24-year-old, 25-year-old men sitting in their mother's house, waiting for, allowing their mother to go out and do work and chop wood, and she's 70 years old and she's got 10 kids to take care of, and a large percentage of them are over the age of 18, and a larger percentage of the ones that are staying at home are male. And then she experiences gender-based violence because of his frustrations that she's not providing for him the way he wants to be provided for, despite the fact that he's not doing any work. So do you see? So for the things that we have to consider are so complex that we have to only look at it as Kenyans and as Africans. And for that does require complete overhaul, because currently when we look at emotional intelligence, we are using templates that have been designed for Europe or been designed for America. They are not designed for our economy, and therefore they will fail. And they're not designed for our society, so therefore they will fail. And so if we're looking to comment on marriage or gender-based equality or gender-based violence or any of those things, we do have to consider that we need to start creating a template for social psychology and emotional intelligence that actually fits our society. Without that, yes, we will continue to miss the mark, and we will continue to essentially spin our wheels. At least this is my perception of the situation. I hope that answered your question somewhat.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And it brings me to my next question, which I will direct to Pastor Ben. Pastor Ben, Nandi has talked about emotional intelligence and how we have missed the mark in how we condense the topic and discuss it, or even transfer it in our understandings of marriage. You are a trained pastor. You have been commissioned to do the work, and the whole institution of being a pastor is connected to adjoining marriages and civil unions. I'd like to ask you, the things that Nandi has pointed out, do you feel there's a change? Do you feel there's a need to change how we do talk about marriage? You've gone to weddings and you've seen people talk about what the woman should and shouldn't do, what the man should and shouldn't do, how it's implied that sometimes cheating is okay. It's arguable on different aspects, but what I want you to reflect your contribution on is, does the training associated with marriage and the couples joining marriage soon, from a pastoral point of view, does it take to stock the emotional intelligence required to sustain the institution of marriage? Ben.
If I may, just because I just want to jump in here really quick, if that's okay.
Okay.
Just while I'm waiting for the pastor to answer. What's interesting is that, when you look at the history of marriage, right? The marriage anthropologically became something that was used as a trade and barter system, which also meant that women were used as a trade and barter system, right? In order to keep the peace, in order to guarantee trade. trade circuit. So when you look at the constitution of marriage and the integrity of marriage, and then you also look at a region that is not inherently Christian, right, but has adopted a Christian religion and uses Christian marriage practices, but under the but sort of cloaked in this tribal, in like tribal and cultural tradition, which simply doesn't get addressed. And then we're supposed to essentially empower our society or empower our women, one, to be good wives, or men to be good husbands. But the way that marriage is designed within our religious system is to guarantee that women are subjugated. So how then do you balance the equality within the marriage when it comes from like a religious point of view, and you're trying to create that counseling aspect? How do we bring that into light?
At the moment, I don't think that the church is ready to handle such a gender-based violence.
If I may,
yes,
just because I just want to. Oh God, sorry. Just while I'm waiting for the pastor to answer. What's interesting in marriage, right? The marriage anthropologically became something that was used as a trade and barter system, which also meant that women were used as a trade and barter system, right? In order to keep the peace, in order to guarantee, trade circuit. So when you look at the constitution of marriage and the inherently Christian, right? But it uses Christian marriage practices, but under the tribal.
So there's a bit of a lag coming in somewhere. Would Nandi, would you kindly repeat what you just said, if you can hear me?
I can't really hear you. Sorry, what did you say?
So could you kindly repeat what you just said?
Yes, sorry. I was saying, considering from a religious point of view, when you take the history and the construction of religion and how the different genders present within religion, I find it almost impossible. I don't understand how we can possibly start to teach very healthy marriage practices and instill people with healthy emotional intelligence when marriage, the way it's designed and what it's evolved into, but was originally designed to support agriculture and the securing of land and trade. So we have an outdated marriage system that we're asking people to adhere to, which was then adopted by religion, which has a huge influence in our country, but is completely submerged also in tribal dogma, right? And as Africans, because we are intensely spiritual people, yes, we're overlooking the requirement for the individual to have mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual aptitude, yes, in order to be able to even receive the counseling provided by a pastor in a way that will allow them a potential shot of a successful marriage without an increased chance of domestic violence or separation.
Thank you so much.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ben.
Yes.
You had just found when Nandi was concluding on an informative.
Yes. So for me, I
about the context of marriage. Yes, Ben. Ben, proceed.
Yes. So you see what happened after the missionaries came in. Yes. So I'm going to give you a brief history. about the religious, the Christianity that we have right now in Africa or sub-Saharan Africa. When the missionaries came into Africa, they were preparing us for colonization. And so the main aim of Christianity in sub-Saharan Africa was to brainwash the African to be subjugated. You know, the white man was to be at the top and the African at the bottom. And so that is why we have a lot of problems, because we have a lot of misinterpretation of the scriptures. We also the Africans brought in the African culture into the church. If you see how how circumcision is on the male child when maybe when at the teenage or something, it's very African. We have a lot of the African culture in church. And so even most of the ideas that the church holds are not really Christian, but they are cultural. Like a good wife should be submissive. The main that verse is that the man should also listen to the wife, should love the wife, should not be bitter with the wife, should sacrifice also for the wife. So it's a two-way traffic. So for me, I believe that there should be a revision of training, marriage counseling. There should be a revision of how pastors are trained in handling marriage issues, handling marriage counseling. There should be a revision, and you know it's a slow process. At least now there's a change. The church is growing, being a bit flexible, but there's still a long way to go. Like when it comes to gender-based violence, I can say that it happens. Also, gender-based violence against males happen, even in our communities. And the church, when it comes to handling the male cases, where the male is the victim, I can say we are a bit wanting. But you know, there's an improvement, but we don't have male support systems in the church. We have women support system. That's why we have, you know, what we call wamama wa kanisa. They have their own chamas. We don't have. The church has not really empowered a male support system. So we actually have it better in the church context than when a male is the victim of gender-based violence.
Thank you, Ben. I want to redirect the conversation a
Yes.
bit. Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Yes.
I want to redirect the conversation a bit. So we are coming from a context where we are discussing marriage under the premise that marriage is inherently a customary. So we are coming from the country today, a context where we are discussing marriage under the premise from a contextual angle. So we are not questioning the religious aspect of it. We are questioning could the religious engagement have been done better? Which is what you are telling us, that there is a lack of support systems for men within the context of religion as a forebearer of marriage as an institution. But I want to bring in Nandi also to help us discuss a bit about her experience growing up as a child. Which is what you're telling us. There is a lack of support systems Daniel Shishia's story. Men. Tell us a bit about your experience growing up as a child in a family. Nandi. A forebearer of marriage as an institution. But I want to bring in Nandi also about her experience growing up as a child.
Nandi, we've listened to.
Here I am. Sorry. So you wanted to understand my experience as a child, correct?
To Daniel.
Yes, Nandi.
Yes, sorry.
So both of my parents were what's it called? They both
growing up as a child in a family.
Yeah. So both of my parents. So my parents were never married. They both married other people, so they were always separated. So from a very early age, I always sort of envied children that grew up in a joint home. Here I am. Sorry. So you wanted to understand my experience as a child, correct? Anyway, so when it comes to actually my parents living separated, this has actually done amazing things for me and my emotional intelligence, because it's taught me that actually people can be happier apart, and they can bring more good to a family apart instead of together. And this is actually married other people, been in my own personal experience, is that I actually got to understand love and got to understand what love is and what respect is and what compassion is from watching them interact with each other. Because for me, it was never helpful for me to never see my parents fight, because then I never understood how to have an argument and reach an agreement and have a compromise, or that it was okay to argue with my spouse or someone that I loved or cared about, you know. And it was a conversation that would always be, because I was an only child for the first 10 years, my parents heavily depended on me for emotional support, but also at the same time emotionally manipulating one another. So when you have two parents that are trying to hurt each other by using the child, then it puts the responsibility of the child in a very complicated place that makes them more predisposed for mental health problems, because you're developing a child's responsibility aptitude in the wrong way and too soon. So a lot of the time I ended up taking responsibility for my parents' emotions because they didn't know how to. And one thing that I always, when I talk to my clients and I talk to their families, especially when I deal with young Black male Kenyans, is that it is very important for a parent to understand that children know that you do not know what you're doing. Yes? So there's a difference between saying something because you have experience with it, and then there's a difference between pretending you know something in order to subjugate your child. Now, in Africa, in our culture, we are very good at teaching subjugation. Yes, and when we do teach subjugation, when we get into maybe marital or into relationships where we have to navigate with other human beings, you might find subconsciously you are looking to be subjugated. And if someone doesn't provide that subjugation for you, you will respond violently towards them because they have caused you a harm. Because the brain cannot identify necessarily what is good or bad. It simply drifts to what it's used to. So my experience growing up was I became used to confrontation, and I got used to very strong levels of manipulation, but I also became extremely acute and really good at managing hostile situations. And so for me, I do not support the idea that marriage is the only way that two people or a family can be successful. I think that when it comes to the sanctity of marriage, if you are, and again, you know, the pastor mentioned a lot of misinterpretations of the Bible, but also to realize that when we are looking at Bible or we are looking at certain texts, like the pastor mentioned as well, there's a ton of context. So my mom, for example, is half white, half Kenyan. And the context from growing up with a mother that's half Kenyan, half white, is that she felt more affiliated with the white community than she did with the black community. So how did that affect me growing up as a black child in a society that was just coming out of colonization, and most of our country, and even to this day, glorifies Westernism more than our own culture? And so growing up in a family where, especially from a high profile family that was involved in government, where the insecurities, especially colonial insecurities and independence insecurities, are extremely high, I would say that the children in my generation, and perhaps the one that follows after me, are more predisposed to violence because simply our parents just haven't neutralized all of their issues yet. And the problem then also becomes is that our country doesn't support mental health practices in the modern world, because beforehand the village worked, right? The village dynamic worked. But now we're pretending that we're not living in a village, but we're treating each other the same way, and we're wondering why things are going wrong. I mean, I just find it bizarre that someone can walk into a conference room in a traditional African outfit and they'll be made fun of over someone who's been wearing a Western suit. And so, but that was something that I was taught in my family dynamic, is that I will get respect if I look like these people, right? And if I feel, and then that allows me to then subjugate other people because they haven't been as privileged as I have. So whether it's the family dynamic, the education, work, whatever it comes from, it all starts within the family unit. And so my experience is that it is every Kenyan's responsibility, especially if you're having children, to guarantee that you do get emotional intelligence and mental health training, because that is your most important job. Nothing else matters. It really doesn't. Making sure that you do not destroy the creative and the evolutionary process of your child based on ego and societal pride will have detrimental effects on their ability to survive and sustain. And so for me, if every parent in Kenya, or if the government is not looking to provide mental and emotional support for a society that is new and that is sick and needs healing, then we're in a lot of trouble. But if we have, people that can influence, like us, the people that are talking and having these conversations, and then we're actually actionable after that, then our country has a hope.
Thank you so much, Nandi. We have had there's a collection, there's a number of issues that are coming into play, into the discussion. The discussion started out and it has been broadened, and I'd like to bring in Mr. Daniel Juma. Mr. Daniel Juma, you've had the context and the story of Dan Shishe. You've also had the weighing in of Pastor Ben, and now we've had the experiences of Nandi. How, for a person who is listening, a young person who is probably aspiring to be married or to marry, on the one side, they don't want to be alone, but then they are taught that the way to go is marriage. But then when they look at marriage today, by and large, the discussions we've been having online show that there's a tepid understanding of the institution. What would you tell this person based on the discussion this far? What do they listen to? What do they contextualize the experiences on as they move forward in their assertion of marriage as an institution that they would want to get into? Daniel Juma.
Thank you. Thank you, Emeka. And I've had the experiences of Emeka, of Dan, and also very inspiring, presentation from Nandi. And yeah, so it's very, just like I told you earlier on, my experience is different. I personally, I've not had any difficulties in my marriage, and everyone has different experiences, yeah. So I think in the world there's so many things. So many things are happening. Human history is basically a long story of conflicts over different things, and that is human history. And for those who believe in God, they say human history is a conflict of good and evil. And sometimes Satan and God are fighting, and whenever you do something good, or sometimes you say God prevails, and whenever you do something crazy, then Satan prevails. I mean, that is for religious people. Yeah. So, and when it comes to marriage, I think it is basically the experience you go through is what will actually make your marriage successful, or make it suck. And that's why the role of parents here is very, very important. That as a parents, because sometimes we go through difficult childhood. For example, myself, if I told you about my childhood, I grew up in a polygamous family. My father had 3 wives, and my mother was the 3rd wife, and a family of 12. This is a very large family of almost 17 children. And we have, when you're growing up, basically, my father moved in. He had retired, and so I had school from primary school when my father had basically retired from civil service, and he just came back, from England. So I remember growing up for me was not easy, was difficult. We have to share resources with the many children that you grow up with, going to school on feet, learning on with the paraffin, that kerosene lamp. So it wasn't easy. So that had, of course, an effect in shaping my life, because in my life I always wanted to succeed so that I don't go back. I help my parents, I help my family, so that I don't have that difficult life. And fast forward to now, my kids, my family are able to enjoy a good life. My kids are going into the schools that they're attending now are very expensive, where I pay like per term, more than 70,000. While me, I was not able to afford that. So, and based on my experience, I'm trying to give them the best life possible. Yes. So the role of family, the role of I always believe, and as Global Peace Foundation, we always say that peace begins in the family, peace begins in the home. That and Nandi spoke about mental health. And that's why as Global Peace, the way we approach peace, we say it starts from the individual. That if you are an individual, you should be an individual, and that is not contradictory. Before you get married, you have to be an individual that is at peace with yourself. Then you are able to transmit that to your family. You can, if you are at peace with yourself, if you have good character, then you can stay with somebody else. And that's where also emotional intelligence comes in, because emotional intelligence, my understanding of emotional intelligence is that basically understanding your own emotions and someone else's emotions. Then you are able to live together. So based on that, and people rush into marriage. Sometimes people rush into marriage when they are not ready. So ready here is, of course, emotionally, physically, and also financially. Very, very critical. So then when you go into marriage, you need to know it's a long haul, and based on how you treat one another, in my own life, I've been taught that marriage is a sacrifice. You sacrifice for the other person, and when you go into it with selfishness, that you want to gain from your husband, or your husband wants to gain from your wife, then it never works. So it's a kind of win-win, give and take. You living for the sake of the other, and the other person living for the sake of you, of you, and that way you are able to bring an kind of an ideal family. So this is where everything begins. And if you get the wrong person, and that's why I say again, before you get married, I think you really need to make sure that you're running the right person, because your trajectory in life will depend on the person you're living with for the rest of your life. Sometimes you marry someone who will not even help to support your future, to help you to grow. Maybe you marry a woman who is going to squander maybe the little money you are trying to save, or you marry a man who is squandering the little money you are trying to save as a woman. Then that brings it pulls both of you down. So I think this is a very, very important topic. The most important lessons we should be giving young people, other than education, is to teach them how to live, prepare them for life after marriage. Because as much as marriage may have its difficulties, but that marriage is the reason we're here. Sometimes I'm an originalist. I believe that I personally believe that, of course, marriage, and this is what I learned from my parents, is procreation is very, very one of the most important reasons why people get married. Because if we say we're not going to get married, then that means that lineage is basically ended, and that is my traditional self. So I think marriage is, in preparation is very important. Education, so that people are ready, and when they're going into the marriage life, they should know it's not easy. It is easy to be single, because you basically are you don't have anybody to deal with. But that is easy. Also in the world of work, if you like easy things, sleeping is easy. Waking up and just sleeping is easy. But if you are sleeping, that means you cannot pay your bills. You cannot develop. So everything in the world, I think man was born to work hard. We were born to basically work hard, and that's how we are able to exploit the environment, and that's how you are able to develop. But if you are lazy, for example, Europe, some people, most of us, you see, we run from here going abroad, because we think abroad is easy. Life is better there. There are better roads, better infrastructure. Why? Because we are lazy. We don't want to develop our country. We don't want to clean our streets. So our streets, there's a lot of garbage in our streets. So everything is hard work, and that includes marriage. And if you have those who have had difficulties in their marriages, I would not want them to give up or to say that marriage was a colonial legacy. It wasn't a colonial. I think the colonialists, of course, came, with their own idea of marriage, but marriage has been here with us, and it is up to us to make it work. And also, if you talk about colonial legacy, right now, of course, Europeans are telling us that that, for example, polygamy is bad. I'm a product of polygamy. But of course, I know I'm not a polygamous person. I don't think my wife will allow me to marry another woman, even if I wanted to. But again, it's an economic issue, But then again, the Europeans told us that polygamy is bad, but LGBT is good, So it's crazy. So everything is relative, and it's about culture, and so that's my input on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniel Juma. I want to ask Dan Shishie. We are having a conversation here that has been stretched to a number of proportions. But what I'm getting is we are living in a time where our experiences shape who we are. And by virtue of we all have different experiences, people go into marriage as inherently different people. The question I have for you is, do you feel like your experiences have shaped your experiences in your marriage so far? Do you feel they have shaped your understanding on marriage and how you will take it up if you were to take it up again, do you feel like your experiences would inform the decision?
Thank you so much, Robin. And I'm happy with the conversation, the insight that we are getting from the panelists. Honestly speaking, from the experience and from what I've gone through, I think here people marry for wrong reasons. I can say we marry for wrong reasons. Some of our young people marry because they want to impress their parents or their families. Others marry because they have they have they have someone who is well off. Maybe you marry because you see someone is well off, someone is driving, then you fall and get married. Uh, Others marry because they have seen their peers. Their peers have married, so they feel that, oh, they also need to marry. Yeah, so what I can say, generally, people are marrying for wrong reasons. The experience that I had, at least now, even I know one day I'll get back into marriage because I've had enough time to heal, and I've realized that yes, we have good women. We have good women who can take good care of their husband and their family. We just have a small percentage of women whom I can say they can do what was done to me, but we have good women who are ready to settle and grow their families. And as the Anshisha Foundation, the organization that I founded, we realized that there's a gap. We have gaps whereby we have realized that people get into marriage even without knowing what is marriage. You know, people don't know what is marriage. They think that marriage. They don't know what to expect in marriage. They feel that, oh, marriage is always a honeymoon thing, but marriage has challenges, and we are not perfect people. We are imperfect beings. Getting somebody who is not perfect, marrying another person who is not perfect. Now they want to come together to make life perfect. It's not an easy thing, and we have a lot of challenges in marriage. But unless you get educated and learn what to expect in marriage, then the rest will be problems and problems, chaos, violence. And that's why, as the Anshisha Foundation, we are planning to launch a program, the premarital part of marriage, whereby we want to go around the country, even in our colleges, to sensitize our youth and those people who want to get into marriage, and to tell them what to expect in marriage, and whenever there's an issue, how to approach issues. And at the same time, I usually tell people, before you get married, try and understand. Take your time to understand the person you are getting or the person you want to commit your life to. Because it's only after you understand this person psychologically, how does she react to issues? Is this a lazy person? Like, you need to understand how has this person been brought up, how, yeah, all those sorts of things, so that whenever there's an issue in marriage, you can easily understand, or you can easily get to know how to handle the issue. So I usually tell people to take time, not to rush into marriage. Take time to understand this person you want to commit your life. When you expect to stay in marriage for 50 years, you can't tell me that you'll take 3 months to get into marriage and you expect to stay in this marriage for 50 years. It won't happen, because this short period, it means that you have not understood this person you are committing your life to. So it's a challenge, and some of us, the experience that we have gone through has taught us a lot of things. Me, I've learned a lot of things, and I see marriage differently. I can tell you, I can see marriage in a different way as compared to someone who has not have any bad experience, maybe in relationship or in marriage. So it's a challenge, but I usually say is always one step at a time. We are trying our level best to help people and to make sure that the experience that we have gone through, no one else will also be subjected to the same pain, to the same experience that we have gone through, or even worse experience than what we have gone through. I usually say that the pain I went through, the pain I experienced when my ex-wife poured acid on me, to me, I usually say it was a blessing in disguise, because at least I can use the pain I went through to benefit someone else out there, to tell and to inform someone that before you get into marriage, this is what you need to look for. To tell someone that when you see this and this happening in marriage, it is an indicator, that something can happen. So at least I can educate someone to know that before it reaches that point, you can seek help. You can seek help from professional people, professional counselors, because we have realized that we don't seek help. And when we seek help, we don't seek help from those people we are sure they will help us. We go to people who will just advise us to do something they can't do on their own. And then the same advice will lead us into problems, much worse problems than what we are experiencing. So it's just a matter of time, and we sometimes usually say we need to join hands to rescue our society, because when we say that it's not me, I don't care because it's not me. No, one day it can be you. So the earlier we come together, we support each other, even in our churches, in schools, because I realize that churches, sometimes we have violence in our church, but they don't talk about it. But we can see we have violence in our church. So we are just trying to make it open, to create a conducive environment whereby people can talk. People can talk and talk freely of what they're experiencing, and talk freely of their even private lives, so that whenever there's an issue, they can get help. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan Shishie. I want to, at this point, invite my co-moderator. Her name is Michelle. Michelle will be taking us through the comments section and the questions that are there and the contributions a few of the people watching in have to add to the context of the conversation. She'll also be introducing Raya Wamboi, who will be having a performance for us. So I'd like to hand it over to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Robin. I must say that the conversations we are having today have been very rich, and we have had all kinds of view around this very complicated issue called marriage. And here we are now, taking what I think is a commercial break, just to properly have that information sink in for all of us as we proceed to the question and answer session. However, before we do that, I'd like to first invite Raya Wambui, our performer of the day. And before you get into the piece that you prepared for us, just a moment. I think we've lost Raya. I think as we wait for her to rejoin the call, Looking at our comments section, I think it would be a good time to highlight some of the things we are hearing. There's a gentleman called Stephen Okio who says, marriage, a form of barter trade, that's new. Of course, every day we learn something new. And we have somebody saying, I think people need to come with a trailer, like the movie trailer, so you can have an idea who you are hitching up with. And I mean, if only that's a very idealized way to look at marriage and how to get into marriage. And now I see we have Raya back on the call. Thank you, Raya, for joining us. Hi, Raya.
Hi.
I just want to check that your audio
How
and
are
your
you?
video are good. We're very, very good. We're excited
Can
to
you hear
hear
me?
from you. Yes, we can hear you clearly.
All right.
Awesome. So before you get into
Is
the
it?
piece of sorry?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could say something before I say the piece.
Indeed, I was going to ask you a few questions around your interaction with marriage, either from a personal perspective or things you've had and seen for yourself with others. Whatever it is your personal experience is, we're happy to hear how that looks for you, your view on marriage. Welcome.
Thank you. So I think that there is a tendency, because of the time that we live in, because of the day and age that we live in, where commercialization and capitalism is so important to so many people, because we depend on being exploited to make a living. A lot of us are being exploited. And then when you go out there and you're being frustrated and exploited, when you get home, that hostility has to go somewhere. And so for me, I believe that gender-based violence is something deeply rooted in the nature of societies that we are living in at the moment. And that for it to actually get better, we need to have a deeper understanding of emotions and psychology as being very vital to human well-being, and a very good understanding that men are not and should not be made to feel as though they are stronger than human. That expectation builds a pressure cooker. And you find that now that a lot of women are in the workforce, we have a lot more female pressure cookers also, because you're not allowed to say you're having a hard time. You're not allowed to express enough of what you're going through without just being told, okay, it will get better. And that's why you find in societies where these kind of social systems have been in place for a long time, things like therapy and keeping pets is very normal. You cannot get the support that you need from the society around you. So you end up having to go elsewhere. And we haven't yet developed that go elsewhere. As much as there are so many differences between African cultures and different tribes, we still have quite a few commonalities, which are often summarized under the umbrella of Ubuntu. And now, Ubuntu's principles are about caring about each other, looking after one another, and sharing generally. But in our modern capitalistic context, it's very difficult to implement those things because everybody is being exploited. And it's my belief that that caring and sharing culture is the reason why there was a time when it was said, Izoshidan is our Tungu, because they were under exploitative cultures for a much longer time. The world wars, the industrial ages brought so much violence on women and children all over the world. It's just that we're being taught to glorify those things without looking at their disadvantages. The other thing that goes up, as well as gender-based violence with industrialized and capitalistic systems, is suicide. So we find even right now in Kenya, our suicide rates are not good. They're increasing, they're rising, because we're not in a situation where people are caring about each other, really, to the extent when it would matter. Okay. I think that's my 2 cents on the subject. I did write a poem before I got married, and so it's very idealistic. I hope you enjoy it. It's called "And This Today I Swear to Be True." Time, in its infinity, found the space for us to face each other's smiles, to see each other's truths. In it, we finitely entwine each other's roots. So we met and faced the clarity that we could make a nest in which to stick our sticks together and split our bets. And that, today, I swear to be true. Life and its participants will choose as they choose. Ultimately, I choose you. You are proof that we can work together. A testimony of sorts, like the fact that clay and sunlight can make pots is a blessing of sorts. And on the days the sun won't flinch above cloudy brinks, we will light each other's way. No matter what who thinks, we will have laughter. Our across the room winks, or more like knowing glances, will paint a frame around reality, meaning I am what is real to you and you to me. And that today I swear to be true. As a daughter, as a mother, as a father, as a son, we'll outstretch our hands in search of each other's and reach back when that time comes. What I'm saying is, I'd like to spend the rest of my life with you. And that today, I swear to be true. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raya. What a beautiful, beautiful piece. I found that last part to be most impactful and most powerful. And thank you for sharing your own experience as well. And I think we can even just delve into that. I think we'll pick up exactly from there. And now, as we move towards the end of this discussion, having heard what has been said by all our panelists today, when I hear things around the traditional views of marriage and the more liberal and more present day approach to marriage, I think about young people and how this how all these views come together for them because they have a different set of experiences and circumstances surrounding their choices and their ideas of the future or even marriage as we're speaking about it today. And so what I've heard so far is that technically because of how life is going and how things are proceeding, we have a clash of cultures. We have, things around the importance of companionship versus raising stable children and how that takes form and shape. And there are different problems that are also arising in marriage, like gender-based violence, the mental health complexities that we probably don't have the skills around managing. And then we have separation and the effects of separation on the new generation. And so as we go towards the end of this discussion and really encourage our viewers to, type in even some of their questions, I'll start with you, Daniel Juma. What do you think is the future of marriage in terms of the young people today? What the set of circumstances are vis-a-vis what you, as a person who's almost traditionalist in your view of marriage, would give them as a tip for the future?
Thank you very much. I think, and just to my advice to young people is, I believe that marriage is something that you should not postpone. I remember I got married into my 30s because I wanted to be ready. You want to be ready to be perfectly ready. Always, especially when it comes to financial issues, you can never be perfectly ready. Like now, I'm ready for marriage. And so you find many people in their 30s, some even going into their 40s, they procrastinate, into marriage because they think they want to buy a car before they get married, or they want to have like a house, they want to own wealth before they get married. So if you do that, then you realize that you are wasting your time. And because for you to be rich, really, really wealthy, maybe most people, they always say life begins at 40. So most people will probably start getting a lot of wealth in their 40s. So if you're when you reach your 40s before you get married, you're probably gonna you don't have enough time to enjoy your family, to enjoy with your wife or to enjoy with your children. You also need to grow up with your kids. Let the kids, because now let's say you're living alone now, maybe you're a bachelor, you're living alone, you're definitely spending some money in food. So if you can share what you are eating with your children, then you grow together. That means you are investing in someone else. That is very, very important. And investing, for me, I believe investing in people. If you invest in your children, you educate them, you grow up with them. Then when you grow old, then there's a possibility that they might take care of you when you're already in old age, or you can be able to share some of your successes together. So the future of marriage, of course, it is up to us, especially young adults, to be able to encourage our youth not to fear marriage. I always tell people, like I've always advised my younger brother, to get married. Don't be afraid of getting married. Get married, start having kids early, and so that you can start hustling together, hustling with your kids. You know, you raise your kids when you're still strong. Hata kama ni ile kazi ya mjengo unaenda, lakini unamlipia fees, ana grow akishamaliza, when he's done with form 4 or going to campus, then he is independent, then he is able to support you. Another thing that also ties with that is the youth bank. They always say that the youth bank is the problem, that is the curse. That if you have many children, then that's problematic. But sometimes I believe if you have many energetic young people in your family, who can actually work and to actually bring and support that family, then it's better than having one or two people who do not have much to be able to share. So you have to share with the little that you have. I've seen, for example, Somali families. Find one Somali family, the man has like four wives. Each wife has like maybe 5 or 10 children, and they live together. They share everything together. I mean, each wife biashara, and then at the end of the day, this family is more prosperous because they have many people. They have more labor. People that can actually contribute to the success of that family. So the future of marriage is bright. If not, we are getting married. And also for the ladies, don't wait until you have been frustrated to get married. For ladies, my advice is get married when you're still beautiful, when you're still a flower, when you're still at your prime. Have your kids when you're still young, because having kids when you're already at some age, maybe over 40, health-wise is not good. You struggle to give birth. So we can have marriage. For example, Obama's mother gave birth to Obama when she was 18. So if we can get rid of these responsibilities of giving birth early, getting married when you're early, then we can focus on some other things. You can play golf with your kids, you can have fun with your family. It's not that you're raising your kids when you are old. The money you're supposed to enjoy in retirement, you're using it to pay your school fees. So that is my view on marriage.
Thank you so much, Dan. And I think what I've gotten from that, given all that you've told us, is that first, the future of marriage is very bright, and secondly, that marriage is not something to be postponed. Thank you for your views, and I think now we'll move to our other panelists. I'd like to hear what Nandi has to say. Nandi, could you tell us, based on all the things, our challenges, and what young people are experiencing today, what are the few tips and tricks around, you could share around them getting into the institution of marriage moving forward? Nandi? Nandi, are you still with us? While we wait for Nandi to get reconnected, I think then I'll just pass the question back to our other panelists as well. Dan Shishir, I'll ask you the very same question. Based on what you know now and your own personal experiences vis-a-vis what is happening to our youth, what would be your advice to young people with regards to the future of marriage? Dan?
Okay. Thank you once again. What I can say is that, there's no any rocket science in our marriage. Marriage can work. What we need to to understand is that we need to work on ourselves. Before you hit on someone, you need to know who you are. You know, sometimes people don't know who they are. They want to get into marriage for someone else to make them who they want to be. So it's good to know who you are, like self-awareness, you know. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your limitations? You need to understand yourself better. Then when you get into marriage, what you can change, maybe, and you'll have an opportunity to know who.
Dan? Oh dear. I think we have lost his audio. Dan?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, but you think you'll have to say what you've just, the last sentence or the last statement you've made, you'd have to repeat that.
Okay, I was saying the other key aspect in marriage is communication. Communication is key. You know, people don't know how to communicate. And whenever we have an argument, let's try and work on those disagreements. Let's not say that tutaongea kesho. No, let's give time. Let's give ourselves time. Let's discuss. Let's have time for ourselves as a couple and discuss and solve some of the issues. Yeah, we have negative arguments and we have positive argument whereby, yeah, we disagree, but at one point we reach an agreement. So those are some of the positive arguments that we need to have in our marriages. So communication is key. Communication will bring trust in our marriage. And when we have proper communication, the rest will work. So people should understand whom they are, and then take time to work on ourselves, and then know your partner well and know yourself. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. Again, I think we cannot understate the fact that we have to know who we are before we commit to the institution of marriage and another person. I'd like to again ask the same question to Pastor Ben Kuria before we get to Nandi. Nandi, which is another person. I'd like to again ask the same question to Pastor Ben Kuria before we get to Nandi. If Nandi would be
Yes, and my advice to everyone who wants to join marriage, the institution of marriage, you marry their traumas, you marry their experiences. So,
Ben, are you still here? Your audio is off suddenly. You probably have to say back everything.
Ask as many questions as possible so that you can know your partner, so that you can also know what you are getting into. Learn your partner.
Your audio is suddenly.
Can you hear me?
You probably have to say back everything you just said.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you clearly. Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So as I was saying, learn your partner. Ask as many questions as possible. When you get
yes.
When you marry a person, when you settle down with someone, you move in with their baggages, you move in with their traumas. So it's very important to understand the background of your partner. If you can seek help before you settle down, the better. If you can avoid some challenges, if maybe you see there are some baggages that they are not ready to deal with and there may be a problem, seek help as early as possible, but ask the right questions. Know their friends. Listen to how their friends talk, because friends are a reflection of the person. So meet your friends, meet families, and ask questions to avoid a lot of in marriage. The earlier you can Prevention is better than cure. So if you can prevent some issues, if they're not ready to deal with their traumas or some things that maybe are an issue, it's better to just call it quits and look for someone who is ready to grow with you, and also know the challenges that you can deal with. If maybe they are willing to change, it's okay. Seek help. The main job of the church is to hold people accountable. So if the two of you need accountability, that's the main aim of maybe friends or an elder, someone that you trust. So seek accountability, seek mentorship, talk to as many people as possible, people whom you can look up to, who can be role models when it comes to relationships. That's my final word.
Thank you so much, Pastor Ben, for that. What I got is, for young people, know your partner and ask the right questions, and then that way you can learn what to work through, things you can manage, and things you are not willing to put up with. Pastor Ben, for that. I will get back to you. For young people, know your partner and ask the right questions. Again, in the context of what we're dealing with for young people today, that we have different experiences and different things that are shaping their opinions and views of the world. What would you say is the future of marriage, and what should young people look out for moving forward?
Okay, so the future of marriage, I believe, is obviously gender fluidity, and it's not about who you love, it's about how you love, right? And so I suppose when it comes to the future of marriage, we need to deeply assess as a nation and also as spiritual beings how we can prepare ourselves to support the populations coming up that need to understand that love is a state of being, and it can't be awarded or taken away. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to educate more on, is that when we think of the concept of God, or we think of the concept of spirituality or even religion, for me personally, God is love, right? And so even if you're arguing with your spouse or something, or you feel like you don't know how to begin to have the humility or understand the privilege of what it takes to live with somebody for a lifetime or multiple people, because that is also the direction that we're headed back to, right? Is polyandry, polyamory, polygamy is obviously still there. So when we're talking about gender equality, marriage, gender-based violence, I think it's the faster that we accept love as a state, and how to teach how love manifests itself within our partnerships, is really the future of marriage. And I think the quicker that we can get on board with the fact that evolution is happening, and no matter how quickly our egos want to stop it, it's going to happen anyway, we should be in a state of readiness to be able to support our young Kenya, so that we can leave it in a better state than we found it.
Thank you so much for that. Gender fluidity, I think, is something that we all need to really unpack for ourselves. There's a lot of knowledge to be acquired there, and there's so much information and discussions just to really unpack this for younger people who are confronted more by the challenges of lacking gender fluidity vis-a-vis what is required for them moving forward based on their set of circumstances, their lifestyles, and their choices. Lastly, we will close with our wonderful artist, Raya Wamboi, who, again, I'm not able to see on the call. I think we'll give her time to reconnect. But very quickly, as we're waiting for Raya to come back onto the call, as we finish, I just want to interact with our chat section. I can see someone called Ronetu Edwin says that let's stop commercialization of marriage in the society, and that is what is killing marriage as an institution. And Dan has posted his details for counseling services. So for all who are interested to learn more about what their foundation is doing and how you can collaborate with them or seek help, the details are on the chat. Kindly take a moment to take them in. I see Raya is back on the call. And so we're just rounding up now as we finish up. And I think my question to you is, having shared what you've shared vis-a-vis your experience of marriage, what is and what you have seen for other people, moving forward, what is that one thing, tips and tricks you would offer to younger people, the younger generation, for the future of marriage? As we move to the future of marriage, what would you say about that?
Sorry, my little one is joining in a little bit there.
Say hi.
I think so. I think the thing that I would say mostly is that it's not a union of two people. It's not. There's always more people in a marriage. You're uniting families, most likely, at least two families. So the biggest thing is you don't only need to get to know one person. You need to get to know the family that you're uniting with, and vice versa. And the cultures that you are interacting with, because we're living in a world now where so many of us are having joint unions between different cultures. And making sure that there's that understanding in advance, where there are culture clashes, what are we gonna do if this happens? Or what are we gonna do if that happens? That would be my advice.
Thank you for that. And just to your point, it's true that, and I'm borrowing from all the panelists who spoke earlier, the context of marriage in Africa is not the same as the context of marriage across the globe, in the different continents, in the different cultures. And for that reason, it's true. You marry a person, you not only marry them alone, you marry them and their family and the baggage that their family comes with. And so those are very important things to look out for moving forward. And young people, I hope you have gained as much as possible from this discussion, because these are some of the things I thought I wish I had known before, even I got into dating myself. And so before I completely close this particular session.
Something before you.
Yes, Daniel, sure.
I was privileged to live in Germany in the 90s, and in Germany, okay, Europe, women have more rights than here in Africa. You find that even though in Europe you are married, but a woman, even within the context of marriage, has more rights. You cannot, for example, I learned, from my friend that you cannot, that your wife is free. The law protects your wife. You cannot beat her. You cannot beat her even though she's maybe you found her with another man or something like that. So there's more freedom. The law protects women, in Europe than here. So some of the things that they enjoy in Europe, we don't enjoy them here. So so there's that difference. And that's why for I think our African culture, our African kind of marriage is more, traditional, and some of the things that you do here in Africa, you cannot take them to Europe, and vice versa.
And thank you for pointing that out. The truth of the matter is, as forward-thinking young people, I think this is a really good time to consider, what you would like for your own personal self, because I feel like marriage, ideally, is a matter of choice. You end up with the people who you are most compatible with, the people who you see a future with in terms of alignment of values, opinions, views, and even spiritual associations and affiliations with regards to how you intend to live together and also raise children. Very quickly, I want to hand over to the main moderator of this session. He's mainly representing the Peace Tree Network. And for final comments, thank you so much for sharing your questions, sharing your views, and for all of you viewers who have watched with us today. I didn't see many questions today, but I feel like this discussion was as organic as possible. And so thank you again. Robin.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for taking us through that section of the discussion. I want to bring this discussion to a close by giving many thanks to the panelists that we have had on board. Thank you so much, Daniel Juma. Daniel Juma is the Executive Director of Global Peace Foundation. That's the Kenyan chapter. You can find more information about that organization on globalpeace.org. You can also find more about him on www.danieljuma.com. We also have with us Dan Shishir. Dan Shishir is the Executive Director of Dan Shishir Foundation, and they run a helpline for counseling services and for doing facilitated conversations on gender-based violence and other issues in the gender sphere. You can call them on 1196, that's for the counseling services. Also, more information about them is online. We also have on the same stream Pastor Ben Kuira. Pastor Ben is a youth pastor at a church in Kitengela. He also has varied experience in doing conversations on youth matters. And we also have on our stream today Nandi. Nandi Kegode is an emotional intelligence coach. You can get more information about her by reaching out straight to us on our inboxes on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Otherwise, I'd like to bring this discussion to a close. It has been a pleasure hosting all of you, but now we have to love you all and leave you. Thank you so much and goodbye.
Thank you.